It's May the 17th, 2022, and our reading today in the book of Job is in chapter 12. Then Job replied, "Doubtless you are the people, and wisdom will die with you. But I have a mind as well as you. I'm not inferior to you. Who does not know all these things? I've become a laughing stock to my friends, though I called upon God and he answered, a mere laughing stock, though righteous and blameless. Men at ease have contempt for misfortune, as the fate of those whose feet are slipping. The tents of marauders are undisturbed, and those who provoke God are secure, those who carry their God in their hands. But ask the animals, and they will teach you, or the birds of the air, and they will tell you, or speak to the earth, and it will teach you, or let the fish of the sea inform you. Which of all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every creature and the breath of all mankind. Does not the ear test words as the tongue tastes food? Is not wisdom found among the aged? Does not long life bring understanding? To God belong wisdom and power, counsel and understanding are his. What he tears down cannot be rebuilt. The man he imprisons cannot be released. If he holds back the waters, there's drought. If he lets them loose, they devastate the land. To him belong strength and victory, both deceived and deceiver are his. He leads counselors away, stripped, and makes fools of judges. He takes off the shackles put on by kings and ties a loincloth around their waist. He leads priests away stripped and overthrows men long established. He silences the lips of trusted advisers and takes away the discernment of elders. He pours contempt on nobles and disarms the mighty. He reveals the deep things of darkness and brings deep shadows into the light. He makes nations great and destroys them. He enlarges nations and disperses them. He deprives the leaders of the earth of their reason. He sends them wandering through a trackless waste. They grope in darkness with no light. He makes them stagger like drunkards. Amen. Well, we come now to what is the longest of Job's speeches. It starts in chapter 12 and will go on to chapter 14. And as this speech concludes, the first cycle of speeches ends. There are 3 of these cycles involving the debate, the toing and froing between Job and his 3 friends. And in this one, in a very pointed way, Job will expose the flaws of the worldview that these men have. They are his friends. This is the way of the world, the thinking of the world. Job himself has shared this way of thinking to some degree, especially when all was fine with him in his life. He probably signed up for quite a few of these ideas, but now in his time of misery and pain and need, now he's had time to reflect on these things. And as his friends are attacking him and pouring these ideas at him, he comes to see how false and bankrupt is the false teaching, the wisdom of this world. First of all, this way of thinking, it's cruel, isn't it? Verses 1 to 6. There's a kind of irony when he says to his friends, doubtless you are the people and wisdom will die with you. You're the brilliant ones. You're the geniuses. You know everything, don't you? You're the wise ones. But verse 3, but I've got a mind as well as you. He says, I'm no fool. I'm not a moron for you to attack me like this. And here's the root of the problem. I've become a laughing stock to my friends. They are almost mocking him, a mere laughing stock, though righteous and blameless. I haven't done anything wrong, and you're attacking me. Why? Verse 5, this is the worldly mindset. Men at ease, everything's going well with you in your life. He's talking about his friends. Men at ease have contempt for misfortune. Those who have fallen, those who are broken down, those who are suffering, like me, as the fate of those whose feet are slipping. In other words, because of some moral failure, some secret sin in your life. When you think about it, to treat Job, who is righteous and blameless, like this is very cruel. But the second thing, verses 7 to 12, is that this way of thinking and responding to the world is very shallow. Now, it seems in these verses, let me just read the beginning of verse 7. But ask the animals, and they will teach you. It seems that the you being referred to in this little section is Job himself. So if that's the case, what he's doing, he's quoting the words of his friends. The Apostle Paul sometimes does this, and sometimes it's in quotations. That's what should be the case here. It should be in quotations, because he's really quoting things that they've said to him. Job, are you listening? Ask the animals, ask the beasts in the field and the fish in the sea. They all know better than you what God is doing in this situation. And then what about the aged ones in verse 12? Is not wisdom found among the aged? The senior, the superior, the truly knowledgeable, wise, older people like us. That's what they were saying. And he's quoting them almost in a mocking kind of way in this little section here. And then finally, their view of the world and of God and how he rules the world, verses 13 to 25, it's just too tame. Their view of God is of a tame, sort of rather passive, distant God. But as Job goes through his experiences and as he reflects on the world and observes life, he's come to the conclusion God is not tame. In fact, and maybe he overstates it here. You can understand why he would. But there's wonderful truth in this. There's something about the true and living God. He is wild. He's untamable, even dangerous. You can't put him in a box. You can't control him. You can't make him behave according to your system, which is so inadequate, and yes, has a kind of an order about it, and you're expecting God to play by your rules. But he won't do that. Look at natural disasters, verses 13 to 15. What he tears down cannot be rebuilt. The man he imprisons cannot be released. Well, that's not absolutely true, but at times it appears like that. If he holds back the waters, there's drought. If he lets them loose, they devastate the land. Well, yes, it seems to be very arbitrary, the way in which God rules the natural world. Do you understand that? He's saying to his friends. Have you got an answer for that? That doesn't seem to fit into your neat little rules and the way you think things should be. What about the way in which God deals with leaders? 16 to 21. That's what he's talking about there. The counselors in verse 17, the secular leaders, the priests in verse 19. But it says about these people, he leads them away stripped. People who are judges, people who are courtiers, people who are the high and mighty. they're brought crashing down and they're put in chains and they're led off. How come? What have they done wrong? What's going on here? Verse 20, he silences the lips of trusted advisors, takes away the discernment of elders. He goes on to describe leaders in that way. And finally, not only individual leaders, but whole nations, verses 22 to 25. He makes nations great and destroys them. He enlarges nations and disperses them. There's something very strange about all of this. Mind you, Job has not read the rest of the Old Testament. He doesn't know anything about the stories of Assyria, Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, which illustrate this very, very well. Even in his own little spot where he is, and certainly in his own experience, he realizes that this amazing, majestic, glorious God, he doesn't work in a simplistic, predictable way as they think he does. It's not as simple as he rewards the righteous and he punishes the wicked in this life right now. Now, ultimately, that will happen. But if you want to see that being worked out step by step, point by point, always in the same way, always following our rules and regulations, you won't find that. But it's because you believe that now you're attacking me. No, while we might not agree with every single nuance and every single expression here, Job has caught a glorious truth which these men don't have, that God is free. Yes, oftentimes inscrutably and mysteriously, but he is free to do whatsoever pleases him. And oftentimes, let's be honest, we don't have a clue what he's up to. And therefore, our response to such a God should be, and this is where Job is going to get by the end of his story, it should be humility. It should be worship. It should be the response of the Apostle Paul at the end of Romans 11, 33 to 36. Oh, the depth of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable his judgments and his paths beyond tracing out. Who has known the mind of the Lord, or who has been his counselor? Who has ever given to God that God should repay him? For from him and through him and to him are all things. To him be the glory forever. Amen.